Hi guys, today I'm gonna talk about why you can understand English but can't speak. Why this happens. The first reason is because you are afraid of speaking English. Yeah, guys, you are afraid of speaking English. That's why you can't speak in English because you are afraid of speaking English. You start studying English and you understand everything and you feel ready to speak. But then when the time comes, you feel afraid to speak. And why we English learners tend to be afraid of speaking? Because we don't want to make mistakes. Therefore, we're afraid to speak in English because we don't want to make mistakes. So why this? Why we don't want to make mistakes in English? Why this happens? So English is not our native language. Therefore, when we are speaking English, we want to sound perfect. We want to be perfect in this language because we think that if we make a mistake, this will show us that our English is not good enough. We tend to think that we have to sound perfect. Our English has to be perfect because as soon as we make one mistake, we will think that our English is not improving, our English is not good. That's why we feel afraid of speaking English. So it's funny though, it's funny why this happens. It's funny why we think in this way because we can speak 98% right, we can speak right, and if we just make one mistake, we will just focus on that one mistake. We forget about all our improvements. We were able to maintain a whole conversation, but we just made one mistake and we will think that our English is not good enough because we just made one mistake. So the question is, why don't we celebrate our achievements? Our 98% of not making mistakes. Why don't we celebrate our achievements? Why we tend to focus on just one mistake? Why this? Because we want to sound perfect in this language. So we don't have to be perfect because perfection doesn't exist. So you started to learn English for a reason. Make your reason your motivation. Make this reason your motivation to speak. English is not our native language. Even in our native language, we make mistakes. So why we tend to be perfect when we speak English? You've learned this new language. You were able to learn this new language with new sounds, new grammar, new pronunciation. So you are able to speak. You are able to speak out. Don't let fear stop you from speaking. Just be yourself and speak English. The second reason you don't speak, you don't practice your speaking skills. So the other reason why you can't speak English is just because you don't speak English. You don't practice your English, you don't practice your speaking skill, you don't speak. So that's why you can speak English. If you don't practice your speaking skills, you are not used to it. And if you are not used to it, that means that speaking English is not frequent in your day-to-day life. You don't practice speaking English. That's why you can speak English. You understand more than speaking. So speaking is just any other skill. You have to practice it in order to improve. You are learning a new language with new grammar, new sounds, new pronunciation, and you just expect to be perfect without even practice. So you have to practice. You have to speak to get used to it. You are learning a new language. So you have to make your mouth get used to this new sound. If you don't have anyone to talk to, just speak to yourself. Speaking to yourself will help you a lot to practice your speaking skills, to make your mouth get used to the new sound of the language. I used to speak to myself a lot. That is the reason why I'm speaking right now, because I was used to speaking to myself a lot. Speaking to myself and reading out loud. I say it in many of my videos. Speaking to myself and reading out loud are the two biggest things that really made me speak English right now. That really made me speak English because I used to speak to myself a lot and I used to read out loud a lot. So when you speak to yourself, at first it can be difficult because the pronunciation can be difficult. The sound doesn't come out the way you want it to be. So why this happens? Why it's difficult at first? Because it's a new language and you are getting used to it. In order to be better at it, you have to get used to it. It's a new sound. Your mouth is getting used to it. You are getting used to this sound. That's why you gotta practice. With time, it's gonna be easier. The third reason, you think that only listening will make you speak. Yeah, guys, I'm a person who thinks that listening is the most important skill, but it gets in a point where you have to speak. You have to practice your speaking skills in order to speak. Just thinking that only listening will make you speak, it's not true, guys. So it gets in a point where you have to produce the language because at the end of the day, you want to be able to at least say a word, right? Thinking that only listening and not speaking will make you speak, it's not true. You have to speak. Yeah, you've listened a lot, but now you have to start practicing your speaking skills. It's as simple as that. You read to be able to read better. You write to be able to write better. You listen to be able to comprehend better. So if you want to speak better, you have to speak. It's as simple as that. And when you've spent a lot of time listening, it's going to be easier for you to speak because you already know the right pronunciation. So the moment you pronounce a phrase, a word in a wrong way, you will know it because you spend so much time listening because you know the right pronunciation. But it doesn't mean that only listening will make you speak because knowing the right pronunciation doesn't mean that you can pronounce it. Knowing the right word doesn't mean that you can pronounce it well. Knowing how to say a word in your head doesn't mean that you know how to say it out loud. So you gotta practice, you gotta speak. Listening will help you with speaking, but you gotta speak. Four, you don't have enough vocabulary. You don't have enough vocabulary, therefore, when you speak, the words don't come out. Here, I'm gonna give you some tips. The first one, start writing in English. When you are writing in English, you are writing in your own time, at your own pace, and you are writing what you are thinking, right? You are writing your thoughts, you are writing in your own time, you are writing what you are thinking. So you have a lot of time to think. So that's a good way to increase your vocabulary because let's say you are writing and you want to write a word. You are writing about your day, about your life, and you want to write a word. You want to say, write a word, and you don't know how to say this word in English. You don't know this word in English. So you look it up. You look it up, then you learn it. So if you start writing often, you will learn so many words. Also read. When you read, you learn new vocabulary. You learn so many vocabulary because reading also helps you to increase your vocabulary. The more you read, the more new words you are seeing. And if you look up these words, the more new words you are learning, the more vocabulary you are learning. And when you are speaking, don't get so caught up in one specific word. Don't get so caught up in one specific word. If you want to say a word and you can't remember that word, just say it in another way. Don't be so caught up in that specific word. For example, you are talking to someone and you want to say a word, you want to say that word, and you just get stuck trying to remember that specific word that you forget the conversation. You forget that you are talking to someone. You just get stuck in your head trying to remember that specific word. Let's say you want to say that you look forward to going out, but you can't remember the phrasal verb to look forward to. Just say it in another way. So that's it, guys. That's it for today's video. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel.